What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video, I'll be featuring another strong team in the Open Great League: Tinkaton, Shadow Dusclops, Diggersby. The team functions as an ABB style, with the Shadow Dusclops being used to bait out the flyers and Pokemon like Furret, which gives Diggersby a lot of closing potential. The Tinkaton lead is of course what rounds out that ABB build, but it's also meant to catch those Regidrago leads that are ever so present right now. You can use the non-shadow variant of Dusclops, but I prefer the shadow, especially for the Diggersby matchup. This is where the non-shadow loses, but the shadow wins since 3 ice punches do KO. You can also use Shadow Kanto Marowak over Diggersby, but the bunny is preferred. So in this video, I'll be featuring 2 back-to-back 4-1 sets I had with the team, and with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we beat Tinkaton into Unova Stunfisk. This is a pretty poor lead for us, so we are going to swap out into that Dusclops right away, for hope that if we do lose switch, the Tinkaton will be able to get up energy and then threaten it with the bulldozes and play roughs later. Now the Shadow Dusclops save swap does what it's supposed to do. It baits out that flyer, and because of Dusclops' very fast pacing, we're able to reach 2 ice punches before their potential Brave Bird, which allows us to force a shield. Now, after that gust damage, we are in air cutter range, so my opponent is going to go for air cutter to knock us out, and that is okay. We can just let Dusclops go down, come in Tinkaton, and just farm the Pidgeot down. We get that farm down on the Pidgeot, and we just get to spam off moves against the Stunfisk, and we're in a great spot, especially being up a shield from that Shadow Dusclops save swap. But my opponent doesn't want us to farm down the Pidgeot, pivots out, brings in Golisopod, and that's exactly where we want to be here. We want our Diggersby on that Unova Stunfisk, so we get shield advantage, and our opponent gives up switch to give us an alignment, which is perfect. Here, my opponent with very nice timing, throwing off this Aqua Jet before we get to the Bulldoze to take them out. But that's fine. I can just let it go, and Diggersby can close out from here. 1 shield to respect the Aqua Jet, and then my second shield will be used to protect against a potential Brave Bird that the Pidgeot will throw. So I do give up a shield to protect against it. It is not, it's just an air cutter. So they will be able to reach a second air cutter right here, but it is not going to save them because we get the quick attack down, and then with all this energy, there's just really nothing my opponent can do. Well, that's not true. They were able to survive, keep their Golisopod alive with 1 HP. So at this point, their win condition is to make a catch of a Scorching Sands onto their Golisopod. So I just need to watch and make sure that does not happen. So I fire off the first Scorching Sands right away, knowing that their switch timer is not up. Now, when I get to the second one, I will wait that turn, look at the Thunder Shot come through, fire off the Scorching Sands, and since that is able to land, now this game is won. Mud Bomb gets fired back into Diggersby. It is not enough. We quick attack it down the Ufisk, and then quick attack down the goalie. GG's. Next battle, Tinkaton into yet another Unova Stunfisk. So same game plan here. Save swap into that Shadow Dusclops, and we bait out that Furret. Again, something else that has a positive matchup into Diggersby that we're able to bait out, so we keep it away from it. I land an Ice Punch. The unfortunate part here is that due to the Trailblaze and the ramping up of the super effective Sucker Punches, we're not going to be able to reach 3 Ice Punches, which is needed to KO the Furret. So we're not going to be able to get any type of advantage from this mid game. Just the only good news is that we're able to keep the Fur away from the Diggersby. So I'm just going to look at this health range. I'm like, you know what? This is potential Fairy Wind farm down range. And that's how I mentioned earlier, how I prefer the Shadow. That's another big reason why, is because it's spammy, but doesn't hit too hard. And so the Shadow variant allows it to hit harder, but also can set Tinkaton up for perfect farm downs like that. Where now when the Ufisk comes in, I can just start spamming off these bulldozes. They end up getting the defense drop there, so I get a little bit fortunate. And I should have built up to the play rough at least to try and force a shield there. But either way, that second bulldoze will do a lot of damage. We catch the Mud Bomb, and they come in with a Shadow Drifblim, and I'm thinking, this is going to be a very tough game to win, since this is a positive matchup for the Drifblim here, that I actually almost top lefted. And I'm like, you know what? I still have a decently healthy Tinkaton, and there's still some play left. And we'll see what happens here. I shield the Icy Wind, fire off my fire punches. I'm going to be shielding every move from the Drifblim at this point, just because the Icy Winds are going to do the most damage, and I need my Diggersby around to deal with that Stunfisk. We swap, we catch the Icy Wind, which is massive. My opponent swaps out into Stunfisk, and we reach this Bulldoze. Man, this is a potential win condition here, and yet we get another defense drop. That is huge. That is huge, because look at this. We can survive one Mud Bomb. We can survive 2 Mud Bombs from them, and we're going to be able to get the quick attack down. So what looked like a terrible matchup, and one I almost just top left it out of, we got really lucky, and things just started to go our way. We got the catches, we got the debuffs, the perfect farm downs, that now this Diggersby has so much energy that the Drifblim's not going to be able to astonish us down. It's double resisted. So Diggersby being able to spam off these fire punches, the absolute beast right there, reaches yet another fire punch and is able to flip the script against the Drifblim, and we're able to take that one. GG's. Next matchup, we lead Tinkaton into a regular Dusclops. Now, this is a little bit of an interesting matchup here that is a little bit in the Dusclops' favor. So I just like to play out the zeros, and then depending on how much energy they overfarm with, come in with my own Dusclops and then look for potential catch or whatnot. But my opponent ends up tanking that play rough, storing all their energy and swapping into a Shadow Primate, which I kind of find a little bit interesting. I was a little confused at first. So what I should have done is just swapped into my own Shadow Dusclops right away. So I, can tank a Rage Fist and then start spamming off the fire punches on my own. But because I was slow, I didn't want to go in behind that much energy. So in reality, I just let my Dusclops, my Tinkaton almost take out the entire Primate, but it goes down and get a Hex advantage on my Shadow Dusclops. And now I am going to have to take these super effective Shadow Punches, which is a little unfortunate. So I will take the first one. They use their first shield on one. I'm going to use my first shield on this one as well. And I'm going to look to catch out of this into my own Diggersby, since it would be a CMP tie. And I didn't want to risk losing CMP tie. But my opponent has a Diggersby in the back as well. So they had a very similar plan to me there to try and catch a Shadow Punch. And now we're just going to be firing off these Scorching Sands. I do lose CMP to their Diggersby, which is a little unfortunate, just in case my opponent does get the Scorching Sands debuffs, of which neither of us got on the first one. So now here we are firing off the second one. We're hoping, fingers crossed, no debuff for my opponent right here. But they do get the debuff, and it's like, not great. It's okay. But the good news is that they're now in Ice Punch range. So I can load up to 1 before the Scorching Sands, swap into my Dusclops, and snipe him down with this Ice Punch. Again, the power of the Shadow there. We're here. I decide to let this go, knowing that my Diggersby has a ton of energy and could potentially reach 2 fire punches here. It's just going to come down to a bait game. If they bait with a Shadow Punch, they will reach an Ice Punch. But if I correctly shield an Ice Punch, they will not reach a second Ice Punch before I reach a Fire Punch. So I call the bait, we get it correct, and with that bait call, we are able to seal this matchup. As we then shield up their Ice Punch and under tap the Fire Punch that we have, which will take out their Dusclops. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Tinkaton into Shadow Whiscash. Oh no, this is a little bit of a core breaker for the team here, and a blast for the past at that. We're going to swap into our Dusclops, go for the Shadow Punch after 4 hexes, which due to the 1 turn it takes to swap would be good timing. But my opponent knows that because of the 1 turn it takes to swap, they can go for 6 Mud Shots and then the Mud Bomb for good timing. So that's what they do. And they're staying in, which I find a little bit interesting. So I will be able to land the second Shadow Punch. And from there, I'm okay letting this go. Like, honestly, the only reason why my opponent would stay in this matchup and get rid of their entire Whiscash is if they have another Tinkaton answer in the back. So that's something I have to be wary about. And I was thinking about that in the moment, but my opponent comes in with a Shadow Dusclops, and I'm like, okay, with all this energy, I don't want to bring in my Tinkaton. I should have just brought in my Tinkaton, because again, like we were thinking. they've got to have a second Tinkaton answer in the back if they're staying in with their Whiscash there. So we'll see what it is. Scorching Sands does land. They do survive, able to get off another Ice Punch. And me going, you know, shouldn't have brought in my Diggersby there. Yep, there it is. It's a Talon. And there's really nothing that I can do to win at this point. I can try and just spam off these Fire Punches and who knows, potentially ship it down, jump around with energy, save my Diggersby for later, work with fast move pressure with the quick attacks. But surprisingly enough, my opponent gives up both shields there. So I'm like, okay, I swap and catch. I'm like, okay, if I catch a fly right here, I have a potential chance to come back since they gave up both shields. I could land like a Play Rough, maybe reach another Fire Punch and potentially flip it, but they're on Flame Charge. And that's just, those ramped up Incinerates are just doing way too much damage. So we do land that Play Rough, but they're able to get the farm down and leave with a move, which will definitely take out Diggersby from that range. So GG's to my opponent. Well played. Next battle, Tinkaton into Shadow Annihilape. Now this is not as good of a matchup for Tinkaton as it seems, because as you'll see, the counters and Fairy Winds are doing about the same damage, even though Fairy Wind is super effective. So I just like to play out the zeros since Shadow Annihilape does win the twos and build up to that Play Rough, and I go for the Bulldoze as a bait to potentially trick them into getting a shield. And even then, if you don't get the shield, you will be able to outpace to a second Bulldoze. It's just a lot safer of a play because it kind of guarantees that switch advantage in the zeros, or even in the 0-1s. It guarantees you be able to get off 2 moves before they get off 2 moves. So kind of just recommend going straight Bulldoze there. Now they come in Shadow Drapion, and this isn't that bad of a matchup for Shadow Dusclops, because a little bit of a fun fact here is that Shadow Dusclops does win the 1 shield scenario against Shadow Drapion as long as you correctly shield that crunch and they do not get the defense drop. Well, we correctly shield the crunch and they do not get the defense drop, so my opponent plays it smartly and they're actually going to let that Ice Punch go and save their shield for what's in the back. So we make a nice catch of the crunch onto our Diggersby, and it's their own Diggersby. So this is going to be a little bit of a tricky endgame, but the good news is with all this HP we saved on to our Shadow Dusclops, it's going to be able to put in some work, especially since my opponent has 0 fast food pressure into it. So we land 1 Scorching Sands, get to a second Scorching Sands. Does land, we get the attack drop, and now I pivot into my Dusclops. The attack drop doesn't necessarily matter here for me because my Dusclops is still because they're going to need 2 moves to take my Dusclops out regardless, but they get the attack drop in return, which is fine because we hex down that Drapion, make it to 1 Ice Punch, which is the shield. Video gets cut off a little bit early, but that second Ice Punch does indeed KO their own Diggersby. GG's. That does finish off the first 4-1 set as we get into a Gligar Lead. Now I like to play out the 1s here. You'll see me let the first move go. Realistically, you should be shielding the first move since that is most likely what's going to be that dig. And we're then going to fire off this Play Rough of our own. Does some decent damage to the Gligar. And then here we are shooting up the second move. I like to overfarm right before their Aerial Ace and then fire off the Play Rough of my own. And so that's what we do, fire off this Play Rough right before. And if they shield this one, then I'll just let their move go and get some energy on Shadow Dusclops with a nice hex down. But they let it go and then come in with a Shadow Caesar, and oh no. Because this Shadow Caesar is just gonna tear right through me. I did get a defense drop, which is very nice, but now I do shield that Night Slash and plan to hex down, and I don't even know if I'd get that hex down. I would probably throw more hex than a Shadow Punch for like good timing to get a shield back, and then they'd probably take me out with their next Night Slash, and hopefully I would be able to quick attack down and deal with what's in back. But realistically, a Gligar Shadow Caesar line is going to be pretty tough for you to beat. It's fairly weak to a water lead, so I wouldn't necessarily expect to see it too often, but you know, here I am seeing it here, and it's gonna do a good job of closing out against me. I fire off a fire punch just to be able to pull a shield from my opponent, but yeah, no, this matchup is over. As they build up to the back-to-back Night Slash is very nice energy management by my opponent, as the Night Slash takes me out, and they get a boost for good luck. So I do top left right there. GG's. Next battle, Tinkaton into another regular Gligar Lead. So a little bit of redemption here, or potential redemption that we will be looking for. Play out that one shield scenario. We do correctly use our shield on the first move this time, which, like I said, almost always is that dig. Fire off the play rough of our own. See if my opponent wants to shield this one or let it go like the last opponent did. They do let it go. And now they're going to be firing off another dig. So we are going to load up an overfarm before that aerial ace if my opponent stays in, but they swap out into a Dedenne. And realistically, I should have banked this energy and then pivoted into Diggersby, but I saw I got the defense drop right there. And Diggersby is not going to be, or Dedenne is not going to be throwing parabolic charges into Diggersby. So I can just bank a bulldoze back and look at this. I can quick attack it all the way down. They'll reach 2 play roughs, but Diggersby is so tanky, it can survive it no problem. No threat of being farmed down, and we leave with 100 energy. So really, what I should have banked that energy and pivoted right away. It ended up working out in our favor, as I can now fire off these back-to-back fire punches against the Gligar, since I do not want to take any extra Fury Cutter damage, just for the potential of me reaching a third fire punch, which they come in with the Dedenne, and I do. So we are in a pretty good spot, especially with that fire punch landing. I can probably just fast move down the Dedenne at this point and save my shield for the Tinkaton to Fairy Wind it down, or to finish Fairy Winding it down. And that's realistically what I should have done. But I do go for a Shadow Punch right here, knowing that in the moment, I forgot that I had a Bulldoze stored on my Tinkaton still. So I end up over farming instead of throwing my Shadow Punch right away, but it does not matter because I can just come into my Tinkaton and Fairy Wind this down as the winds do chunk, and down goes that Morpeko. GG's. Next battle, Tinkaton into Azumarill. Great lead for us. We're not going to fire off our play rough right away on 7, even though it's good timing. You want to over farm here and throw 10 Fairy Winds and then the move. Again, still good timing, but just in case your opponent is wanting to tank this play rough, bank its energy, and then swap like you saw that they did here, you want residual energy to punish whatever they come in with, or to bank some residual yourself to then use later in the game. They come in with that Shadow Typhlosion. We do correctly shield the Blast Burn, bait with a Fire Punch of our own. We get to the Scorching Sands, and now I'm going to full send the Scorching Sands. I want to guarantee shields down or get rid of this thing, and I do get shields down, which is very nice. So now Diggersby did its job. I can let it go. And I come into my Tinkaton. I can throw 2 Fairy Winds and then the Bulldoze to take them out if they stay in, but they end up swapping into their Azu, go for an Ice Beam, and that's fine by me. The Azu wasting its energy there is very nice, since Dusclops up a shield will just be able to land a Shadow Punch on that Typhlosion anyways. They reach a second Ice Beam. I'm going to store that Bulldoze for later, just in case I do need it against that Typhlosion for potential combo play or quick swap play at some point. We take out the Azu with a Shadow Punch, and they come in with a Galarian Moltres, and we are in a pretty good spot here as long as you watch for a catch from my opponent, since 1 Ice Punch does land. We get to shield up this fly, and we just watch for a catch from my opponent. Look at the Sucker Punch come through. There is no catch, so we get to freely land this Ice Punch, and my opponent's only win condition at this point is to hopefully incinerate me down, but they cannot do so. I get the Shadow Punch before, and that does take out the Typhlosion. GG's. Next battle, Tinkaton into a regular Annihilape. So similar situation to the Shadow, we are going to play out the Zero Shields here. And they're firing off that Rage Fist right away. They want to ramp up their attack, so the counters are doing more damage. And now against the regular, I like to load up all the way until right before their next Rage Fist, then until 2 before their next Rage Fist. So it entices them to shield that I'm going to full send. And if they do shield, I can still get off my second Bulldoze before they get off their second Rage Fist. So we do pull that shield. They get a counter down. And I come in with my Dusclops. Opponent reading what I was going to come in with is a little too slow. They're not able to press the move in time as the Hex does register. They come in with Wiggly. I pivot Diggersby. They meet it with a Shadow Drapion, and oh, Trainer. On even shields, this isn't a good Diggersby answer. It's a positive matchup for the Diggersby on even shields, let alone down a shield. So we shield an Aqua Tail, let one go. And then we get to fire off this Scorching Sands of our own before they reach 3 Aqua Tails. This will definitely be enough to take out that Drapion. Back in comes the Wigglytuff, and they can't charm us down and before we reach a Scorching Sands, which my opponent realizes, so they do concede. GG's. Next battle, Tinkaton into Shadow Drifblim. This is going to be the final battle of the video, where in this one, we just want to fire off the play rough right away. Since it is good timing, and just in case they decide to debuff us, we want to get this move off before the potential debuff. Now they end up shielding that play rough. So I'm thinking that they're shielding the play rough. They're going to bait because they want to debuff my attack before I am able to land a play rough. So we call it, it is that Icy Wind. We save that energy for later, meet their Drapion save swap with our own Diggersby. And just like last game, we're in a good position here since our Diggersby does have a shield advantage against this Drapion. I fire off the Scorching Sands right before their third Aqua Tail. It will be enough to take out the Drapion if they let it go, which they do. Now we get to have our Diggersby matched up against this Drifblim. They come back in with, land an Icy Wind. And with that Icy Wind landing, we're not an astonished downrange Diggersby, just too bulky, especially with the double resisted fast moves. One Fire Punch does land, a second Fire Punch will land, and I will get to a third one unless my opponent throws energy to take me out. But I swap into my Dusclops trying to Hex Snipe them. They just weren't quite Hex range, so that ends up being a little bit of a misplay as I do have to tank that Icy Wind. And seeing that it's a Araquanid in the back, I was really hoping that my Dusclops is not debuffed at this point. Because those Shadow Punches, they just tickle the Araquanid. 2 Shadow Punches land. I do reach a third one, and I'm 2 hexes off a 4th Shadow Punch. And if I'm able to reach that 4th Shadow Punch, I could win this game. If I don't reach that, I can't win this game. But my opponent, looks like they might have been able to get a farm down there. It looks like it would have come down to actually DRE as to whether they got the farm down or not. But with them throwing that Bubble Beam, I can safely shield that, combo play with my Tinkaton, reset that attack drop on my Dusclops, and with the Shadow Punch stored, I am just easily going to win this game. Tap out, make sure we don't get that 1 turn bring in, as that would be absolutely brutal here in this matchup. We don't get the 1 turn bring in, get to the Shadow Punch, and take out that Araquanid, and securing our second 4-1 set in a row. As I hope you saw from these battles, this is a very strong team with a lot of good coverage on the current meta. It's also pretty bulky, which combined with that coverage gives it a good amount of flexibility to use as needed. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.